Phil Mickelson's daughter exposes him with one photo, but the image is not loud, no caption, no angry words. It still does not tell a full story. That is why it is dangerous. For years, Phil's public life had one shield: family. Golf fans know that image well. The wife, the kids, the big hugs after wins, the idea of a man who put family first. So when a daughter moves one step away from that image, people notice. This post does not scream. It sits there, but one detail in it refuses to go away. It is small, it is easy to miss if you scroll fast. But once you see it, it changes how you read the whole moment. Here is the part that makes it worse for Phil. It did not come at a random time. It came while a bad report about him was already moving through golf media. At the same time, fans were already asking questions, and his own team would rather have calm. That detail was small. The timing was not. A calm news cycle can be managed. A quiet family picture is harder to manage. It gives no press release. It gives no quote. It only gives a visual detail that fans can study, share, and argue about. That is where this part begins. Not with a court fight. Not with a big interview. It starts with one daughter, one frame, and one detail that does not look like an accident. It looks planned. It looks timed. And it lands at a moment Phil would hate. That is not normal. My view, when family looks distant, the story gets bigger. Agree? Subscribe for the rest. The daughter in that frame is Brynn Mickelson. She is the eldest child, and that matters because she has never been a background figure in Phil's family image. Golf fans have watched her grow up beside tour life, major weeks, and the polished version of Phil that always had his family close to the story. Amanda is important here for one simple reason. She is not outside the Mickelson world. She is inside it. When a person that close becomes part of a public moment, the moment stops feeling casual. It starts feeling personal. It makes fans ask what is going on at home, even if nobody has said a word. And that is exactly why this needs to be handled slowly. The first mistake would be to treat this like random internet noise. It is not. The second mistake would be to rush to a conclusion before the detail is clear. The detail is the key. Without it, the story looks like speculation. With it, the story starts to make sense. A normal post from a fan means little. A visible signal from his daughter means something else. So what makes Amanda's position so sensitive? She has been connected to Phil's name for years. Not as a commentator, not as a critic, as family. That role carries trust. When trust is attached to a name, even a small public signal can feel heavy. This is where the tension begins to rise. The story is not just about Phil being in the news again. It is about the people closest to him becoming part of the conversation. That changes the stakes. A player can survive bad headlines. A family image is harder to repair once fans start looking closely. The daughter was only the first piece. The frame still had not given up its real detail. Fans started comparing old pages and new pages. Some noticed that pictures tied to Phil were not as visible as before. No one from the family explained it. That lack of explanation gave the story room to grow. It also made every new photo feel like a clue. This did not fade because the timing was wrong. The photo appeared while Phil was already under pressure from a serious claim. The claim was not about golf performance. It was not about a scorecard or a rules issue. It was personal. That made it harder to control. Silence can fade. Timing cannot. That timing brought another person into the story. She was not the daughter. She was closer to the center of the frame, and her presence changed how the image was read. The woman beside Amanda was Amy Mickelson. For golf fans, that name carries weight. Amy has been part of Phil's story for decades. She has been linked to his biggest wins, his hardest personal moments, and the family story that protected him for years. When fans saw her in the same frame as Amanda, the story stopped being just about a daughter. Amy's presence mattered because she was not a random relative. She was the person who had stood beside Phil through the parts of his life that fans thought they knew. That made the image feel heavier. It made people ask whether this was a small family issue or something much bigger. There was no public statement from Amy. There was no interview. There was only the photo and the details inside it. That is why people kept looking. A statement can be written by a lawyer. A photo can be studied by everyone. The frame also made the timeline feel tighter. Phil's team wanted space from the report. The family image did the opposite. It pulled attention back to his private life. It made the claim against him feel closer, more current, and harder to ignore. Amy had entered the frame. The sharpest detail had not. Before that detail can matter, the report behind it needs context. A serious claim had surfaced in golf media. It said that years earlier, Phil had shown a private photo of himself to a woman connected to the golf world. The claim also said he made an unwanted advance. Phil's side denied it. This was not a small story. It touched reputation, marriage, and the family story Phil had built. In golf, image matters. Sponsors watch, fans watch, tour leaders watch. A personal claim can follow a player longer than a bad round. The report also came with a difficult question. If the claim was false, why did it feel so damaging? The answer was simple. The claim matched a pattern that critics already like to talk about. Phil had carried rumors for years. Some were about money, some were about temper, some were about choices away from golf. This new claim hit a more personal area. That is why the photo did not need words. It arrived while the claim was still fresh. It gave people a visual place to put their doubts. Fans did not need a verdict to start asking questions. They only needed a picture that seemed to fit the mood. Claims spread fast. Pictures make them stick. The woman in the claim had not been named yet. Once her name entered the story, the stakes changed again. The woman connected to the claim was Ashley Perez. Her name mattered because she was not a stranger to the golf world. She was connected to Pat Perez, a known PGA Tour figure. That link made the story feel closer to the inside of professional golf. This was not an anonymous rumor from nowhere. It involved people who knew the tour environment. That did not prove anything by itself, but it changed how fans heard the claim. Insider names make stories travel faster. They also make denials feel less final. Ashley Perez claimed the incident happened years earlier. The report said Phil showed her an explicit photo and made an unwanted advance. Phil's side rejected the claim. His attorney pushed back hard and called the story a drive-by attack. That denial was clear, but it did not erase the damage already done. The reason was timing. The denial came after the claim had spread. It also came before the family photo got attention. In cases like this, the first version often sticks. The correction has to chase it. That is a hard race to win. Ashley Perez had a name. The family still had silence. That silence became the next problem. If Phil's team was fighting the claim, the family side was not giving him the usual support. Fans noticed that gap. They did not need a statement to see it. The gap became easier to see when fans looked online. Amanda's pages did not show a loud message. They showed removal, or at least that was what many fans believed they saw. Posts connected to Phil appeared less visible. Some people compared older screenshots with newer pages. The change was quiet, but it was enough to fuel the story. This is where the title started to make sense to people. A daughter exposing a father does not always mean a spoken accusation. Sometimes it means a public distance. Sometimes it means removing the visual proof of closeness. Sometimes it means standing beside someone else while the family image cracks. Still, the online change was not the full answer. It was only context. It explained why fans were watching Amanda. It did not explain the single frame that made the story spread beyond golf pages. The frame had two people in it, Amanda and Amy. The location was ordinary. The setting was not dramatic. That was the strange part. It looked like a normal errand, not a staged moment. Ordinary places can carry the loudest messages when the timing is bad. Online absence gave the story a pattern. The photo was about to give it proof. That proof was not a document. It was not a leaked message. It was one small detail in a public place, and it sat right where fans could not miss it. Before that detail can be understood, one thing must be clear. This was not a golf course moment. It was not a tournament interview. It was not a staged post. It was a real-life errand, and that made it more damaging. Real life feels less controlled. When a story moves from golf media into a normal public place, it feels closer to truth. The danger for Phil was that the photo did not look managed. Managed stories can be corrected. Unmanaged moments feel real to fans, even when they are not fully understood. A grocery stop is not a red carpet. It is not a sponsor event. It is the kind of place where people believe they see the truth. That belief made the image move faster than any denial could. This story had one more layer that many fans missed at first. The frame was not only about Amy, it was also about Amanda standing beside her. The daughter's placement mattered. In family stories, position can feel like support. It can feel like protection. It can also feel like distance from someone who is not in the picture. That is why the photo kept getting shared. It was not loud, it was not dramatic, it was quiet enough for people to project their own reading onto it. Some saw sadness, some saw anger, some saw a family drawing a line. The photo did not correct any of those readings. That silence let the story grow. Phil's past also made the reading heavier. Golf fans do not forget old headlines. They remember the gambling stories. They remember the insider trading case. They remember the split with Bones. None of those issues prove this claim, but they created a place where doubt could sit more easily. So when the family photo appeared, it did not land in a neutral space. It landed in a space already full of questions. That made every detail feel bigger. A missing ring would normally be a small thing. In this context, it became a signal. A grocery trip would normally be private. In this context, it became public evidence. That is the point where the story crossed from rumor into image. Until then, fans were debating a claim. After the photo, they were debating a moment they could see. That shift made the story harder to stop. It also brought the real detail into focus. Rumor had done the damage. The frame was about to make it visible. The photo that caused the real stir was simple. It showed Amy and Amanda together during a grocery trip in San Diego. The two were near a Trader Joe's, a place where nobody expects a golf scandal to appear. They were dressed normally. The scene looked casual, but one detail stood out. Amy's left hand did not show her wedding ring. That was the detail. No angry caption, no long statement, no direct accusation, just a missing ring beside the daughter, at a time when Phil was facing a personal claim. For fans, that was enough to connect the story. The ring had been part of Phil's public family story for years. Seeing it absent made the claim feel personal and current. This is why the title phrase spread. The daughter did not need to say a word. Her presence next to Amy made the image feel like a family side of the story. Fans read it as distance. Some read it as support for Amy. Others read it as a quiet message that the family was not standing around Phil the way it once did. The exposure was not one loud confession. It was a stack of small signals. The claim, the denial, Amanda's online distance, Amy's missing ring, the daughter beside her. Each part alone could be explained. Together, they formed a picture that fans could not ignore. One missing ring changed the whole reading. The story did not end there, because Phil's response raised a new question. If the claim was false, why did the family signals continue? Phil's side had already denied the misconduct claim. His attorney rejected the report and called it unfair. That response gave Phil's supporters a line to hold. It also gave critics a reason to push back. The denial was strong, but the visual story was simple. People could argue with words. They found it harder to argue with an image. This is where the situation became difficult for Phil. In golf, reputation is built over years. It is built in wins, in conduct, in family moments, and in the way a player handles pressure. Phil had always had a complicated place in the sport. Fans loved his creativity. They also debated his choices. LIV Golf had already split opinion. Past issues had already made some fans question him. This new story did not arrive in a clean space. The family story had been one of his strongest protections. When Amy was sick, Phil's support was part of the story fans respected. When Amanda reached milestones, Phil's presence was part of the image. Golf fans remember those moments. They do not forget them easily. That is why the missing ring hit harder than a normal rumor. Amy's absence of a ring was not proof of divorce. It was not proof of separation. It was not proof of guilt. But it was a visible detail during a serious claim. In the absence of explanation, people create their own meaning. That is how public stories grow. The gap between fact and feeling gets filled by speculation. Amanda's role made it worse for Phil in a quiet way. She was not attacking him. She was simply present in the frame with Amy. That presence made the photo feel like alignment. Fans do not need legal proof to read emotion. They see who stands next to whom. They see who is visible. They see who is missing. Denial protected Phil's side. The photo gave fans another side. That is why this story kept moving. It was not only about one claim. It was about trust, family, and the image Phil had spent years building. A player can come back from bad golf. A player can come back from criticism. Coming back from family doubt is harder because fans feel they know the person behind the player. Golf fans do not only follow scores, they follow loyalty. When loyalty looks shaky, Every old story comes back. Every past mistake gets a second look. That is the price of a public life built on image. The final lesson is simple and uncomfortable. In the modern game, a photo can do more damage than a statement. It can travel faster. It can bypass lawyers. It can bypass PR. It can sit in a fan's mind because it feels real, even when the full truth is not known. Phil Mickelson's daughter did not need to hold a press conference to become part of this story. Her name, her presence, and the quiet signals around her were enough. The photo did not tell everything. It told just enough to make the audience stay, wonder, and ask what comes next.